This is the Viva. How did America get involved in World War One? Although many Americans' involvement in World War One on the side and allies now seems inevitable, it was not a certain thing at the time. America decided to enter the war on allied sides, which was rooted in a complex mixture of historical and contemporary reasons. It had persistent economical and cultural ties to Britain and France, efforts of Britain to involve us in the war, and progressives' interest in spreading democratic institutions. Point 1. It had persistent economical and cultural ties to Britain and France. By 1914, America was no longer a majority country. They remained the largest single ethnicity, but Germans were not far behind. Why didn't America side with Germany and Britain? Well, Woodrow Wilson's Declaration of Neutrality highlighted America's multi-ethnic heritage and how it made involvement in the war difficult. When General John Pershing arrived with the first American troops in Paris in the summer of 1917, he walked to the tomb of Marquis de Lafayette, who had gone to the aid of America in the struggle against Britain. When he got there, he said, "Lafayette, we are here," which was an expression intended for all countries. This propelled America into war. By this gesture, they were saying what Lafayette fought for, to stop America and to make the world a freer and better place. America became allies with Britain due to the Spanish-American War, when Britain's generous support of Americans surprised the Americans, who assumed that they would never cooperate. By the early 20th century, they had never been closer. Woodrow Wilson, the Declaration of the Ethnicity speech that Woodrow Wilson gave was, quote, "The people of the United States are drawn from many nations, and chiefly from the nations now at war," end quote. Point 2, the efforts of Britain to involve us in the war. When America was bringing people and goods to Britain, Germany shot down one of their ships because they were just patrolling the waters, doing what Germany does. And they shot down one of the ships, causing arguments with America and Germany. They created a treaty called Sussex, named after the ship that the Germans shot down, and the treaty was called the Sussex Pledge, saying that they could not attack any passengers, ships, or merchant vessels that arrived. The Germans agreed until the Germans broke that treaty, saying that they could defeat Britain within 5 months. They also didn't want to side with America, saying that despite remaining neutral, they were supplying Britain with weapons. This caused a ton of publicity to this issue. A quote by Bertrand Russell says, quote, "Any fact which had a propaganda value was seized upon, not always had restricting regard for the truth." So a lot of people would put this in magazines like, "Oh, the Germans shot us down and stuff for this, and this issue," but that's not always true because people do things, just to get money sometimes, unfortunately. And point 3, progressive interest in spreading democratic institutions. The 14 points, so this is about the 14 points in what Woodrow Wilson did. A speech by Woodrow Wilson, who was very progressive, said that they took many domestic ideas, was explaining how they took many domestic ideas and translated them into foreign policy, like free trade, open arguments, etc. This was the only explicit statement in the war aims by any of the nations fighting in World War I. The 14 points were based on the research of the Inquiry, a team of about 150 advisors led by the foreign policy advisor Edward M. House, into the topics likely to arise in the anticipated peace conference. A quote by Woodrow Wilson said that, remember that God ordained that I should be the next president of the United States. Neither you or any other mortal or mortals could have prevented this," end quote. So although many Americans' involvement in World War I on the side of the Allies now seems inevitable, not a certain thing at the time, America decided to enter the war on Allied sides, which was rooted in a complex mixture of historical and contemporary reasons. It had persistent economical and cultural ties to Britain and France, efforts of Britain to involve us in the war, and progressive interest in spreading democratic institutions. Thank you. That's it.